To call The Little Mermaid live action anything more than a soulless cash grab on the part of Disney would be a bit redundant because that's all they've been doing with their live action remakes. And if you think about it for half a second, this is nothing new for Disney, except for what they used to do is they would take all their classics, they would put them in a vault, as they put it, and tuck them away for 5 or 10 years, and then suddenly, oh, there's this spectacular released from the vault, Snow White on animated film. These were nothing more than cash grabs at the time as well, and honestly, I think Disney needs to go back to start doing that again, instead of just rehashing, retelling, regurgitating the same story in a live action form, because live action does not do these stories justice. Now, I'm going to get into spoilers with this review. I sat through and I watched it with my tiny little clones, and they had an opinion as well. And I'm going to go over that. But when I do decide to get into spoilers, I'll let everybody know. I've judged this movie based on the original animated feature, as far as story, song, pacing, and all that nifty stuff. So, without giving away any spoilers at first, if you saw the original animated classic, you don't need to see this. You really don't. This is practically a beat-for-beat retelling of the original animated feature. There are a couple of changes. One of them is a major change to the story. One of them is a little minor, and a couple of things they took out just kind of irritated me. The songs were nothing to write home about. It's the same songs. Halle Bailey, I was expecting a little bit more from her. Some of her notes sounded like she was just yelling them out, whereas others, the fluctuating tone, it put me off. If that is someone else's, if that's your taste in music, if that fits your taste, that's fine. But for me personally, I didn't care for it. The CGI, absolutely indefensible hot garbage. There is no two ways around it. The trailers show you exactly how good the CGI is, and it's just terrible. For a $200 to $250 million budget for this movie, I don't know where they put it, because it sure as hell was not in the CGI and effects, because it was bad. There's no two ways around it. It is just bad. Couple of new songs that they added, 3 I believe. One of them you heard, the Scuttlebutt. That was absolutely unnecessary. I guess it was just a way to give Awkwafina something to do in the movie other than speak. Although why you would, it's been said one of the jokes that Scuttle had was his atrocious singing voice, and yet you're going to have this creature and Awkwafina doing the voice of a rap song in this movie. I've heard that some kids enjoyed it, but not mine. So, all in all, this movie is really nothing to write home about. Anyone coming out, I cried in the theater. It's like, what sort of movies are you watching that this movie got you to cry? It was the same story. And this is not necessarily a spoiler, but there's a theory, a talk, or a complaint going around that Ariel's motivation, I've even said it before, but I waited to see the movie to pass judgment. Ariel's motivation for going to the surface world has not changed. She wanted to go to the surface world because she wanted to be human. She wanted to be where the people are, as the song says. I almost broke out into song myself, because it is a fantastic song. I don't care for Halle Bailey's performance of it, but it is what it is. She finally gets an eye of Eric and falls in love, and guess what? That's the same story in this one. So whatever complaints anybody has about Ariel she wants to be an independent woman. She wants her own motivations. That's bullshit. It's a lie. The actors and actresses and directors and everyone coming out and saying, Ariel's going to be her own woman. She's going to a strong, powerful woman. No. She wants to be human, to be with Eric. She falls in love with Eric. It's the same story. I will never understand why these actors and actresses and these writers and everybody come out and says just flagrant lies in an attempt to promote their movie, and all it does is end up turning people off, and I'm getting off on a tangent. Let's get back to the movie. So, I'm going to start going into spoilers and little things that I'm going to be specific about it. So, we're going to have this lovely little thing up. So, here's your chance. If you actually want to go and see the movie and judge it for yourself and come back and watch the video, by all means, thank you very much. I appreciate you making it this far. Let's get into spoilers. Like I said, Ariel's motivation is the exact same thing. She wants to be with Eric. Originally, just like in the animated classic, she wants to be where the people are. She wants to get away from her father because she's an unruly teenager. She's in love with the human world. And then she sees Eric. She sees Prince Eric and falls in love. Now, I don't know if it's the writing or Halle Bailey's acting, but she didn't do a very good job of coming across that way, but it's definitely there. Talking about the music, talking about the songs, the scuttlebutt was just oh my God, it was an unnecessary screeching in my ears, but that's just me. Again, this movie's not made for me. I'll say this movie is not, they are correct. This movie's not for you. Yeah, it's not for adults. It's not really for parents. I don't think it's for people who truly love the original animated classic. This is for a new generation of kids. Now, is there some sort of underlying message in brains? No, there really isn't. The movie in and of itself is trying to be fun, trying to tell a story, and it's the same story. But there's no, outside of the major change to the end that I did not care for, because I just didn't, my opinion, whatever. I'm going to stop saying my opinion, but that's my opinion. That one major change, the rest of the movie is the same. There's a few scenes that they added here and there. Ariel going through the marketplace and picking things up and not paying for them and then trying to walk off. And the only thing that Eric ended up paying for was the hat that was on his head. But she walked away with a flower and she ate it. It's like, well, you're not paying for those things. In Aladdin, they went to cut off her hand. But in this movie, okay, yeah, well, that's fine. Maybe Eric came behind her. But it was just, that is definitely a nitpick on my part. And that's fine. It's just something that went, why are they doing this? She danced with the people in the town on the island and everything, and that was fine. But back to the songs. One song that they added, another song that they added that was absolutely unnecessary and jarring was Eric. Eric sang a song because he loved the sea and wanted to be there and just had fallen in love with this girl. And I'm sorry, the actor cannot sing. It didn't seem like they did anything to help his voice, his singing, his tone, or anything like that. Oh my goodness, it was just bad. It was just meh. The delivery of the songs, the inflection, the tone, and like I said, Ariel, at one point it sounded like she was yelling her song. Melissa McCarthy could have done a better job with Poor Unfortunate Souls outside of this entire verse that they ripped out for no reason whatsoever, because it's part of the actual con to get Ariel to give up her voice, and I've ran my mouth about it over and over again. It's just frustrating. It was an unnecessary removal from the song. Didn't have to happen. You're building up an evil character to be evil, so you leave that in there because she's trying to convince. Pulling it out served no purpose, but as far as Melissa McCarthy's delivery as Ursula and the singing, when she says, "Flotsam Jetsam, now I've got her, boys, the boss is on a roll," she says it out loud instead of actually slyly saying it to Flotsam and Jetsam, like behind the scenes, sneaky. She says it normal so Ariel can hear, and it's like, that's not what the purpose of that line is. And just, like I said, some of the inflections of the words and the emphasis on different words was off-putting, again, compared to the original. Like I said at the beginning, I am comparing this to the original, the songs to the original, the delivery. The major changes that I had a problem with, there's really only two, honestly. The fact that Ursula added amnesia to the little spell to give her an upper hand in tricking Ariel, in winning at the end of the day. It wasn't necessary. I do wonder why they put that in there. There's theories that they put that in there to, I guess, make it less, I don't know. Someone explain to me why that made sense. Why putting amnesia? Like, you take Ariel's voice, you give her legs, you send her to the surface, but she can't remember why she needs a kiss. It was difficult enough as it is, and in the end, with everything else being the same, it did not serve any purpose. It didn't promote the story. It kind of almost took away from the story, the purpose of Ariel losing her voice. But when you add things in, to a classic story, a decades old story, you would think they're there for a purpose, to add, to benefit the story. And putting in Ariel's amnesia, I don't see it as adding to the story. Let me know what you think in the comments. But the one single major change is the end of the movie, Ursula's death. Now, call it female empowerment, call it Ariel has to save the day, call it a Disney princess cannot be saved by a man, whatever. At the end of it all, it doesn't make sense, because how does Ariel even know how to pilot a ship? How does she know what that little wheel on it does? Everything she knows. She looks at a fork and tries to brush her hair with it. She calls it dinglehoppers, thingamabobs, and all these other things. She finds a spyglass, doesn't know how to use it. So it doesn't make any sense that, oh, she's on a boat, so she immediately knows that that wheel right there turns the rudder, steers it right into Ursula, and she dies. It doesn't make sense in the story. Ariel doesn't know how to pilot a ship. It's outside of ideological nonsense. Why did they change that? Which leads to Ursula's death. Was so anticlimactic compared. It happened, again, beat for beat with that one change. Ariel saves the day instead of Eric. It's anticlimactic. It's not well done. The CGI is not well done. It looks very stiff. The actor, Melissa McCarthy, was very stiff in everything she was doing, all slow motion and all this other stuff. It just felt, okay, it happened. Nothing spectacular. It just, oh, suddenly it happened and then it was over. Ariel goes and rescues Eric, and they live happily ever after. One thing I didn't like about Melissa McCarthy's performance, really probably the only thing I didn't like about it, other than, the way she sang Poor Unfortunate Souls, I think she could have done better, was the Brooklyn accent that she added to Ursula. That wasn't there. It wasn't necessary. It was kind of off-putting for me. Again, a lot of the different things in this movie were off-putting, but let's see, what else? Now, I'm going to go through some of the nitpicks that I had. And one of the major things that I had a problem with that pulled me out of it, the idea of the mermaids. Mermaids having to tread water. Numerous times you have Ariel and King Triton just barely with their heads above water. These are magical creatures. Why were so little of their bodies above water when they're trying to be seen? At the end of the movie, thank you so much for this scene where King Triton says goodbye to Ariel. It wasn't the same as in the movie. In the original animated classic, they did such a much better job with King Triton flowing up on the waves to the side of the ship to meet Ariel and tell her goodbye and how much he loves her. In this one, he's on the side of a dinghy with barely his shoulders above water, and it's just, I don't know. I would think they would try a little harder. They did not have to make the mermaids look like they were having to tread water. Again, mermaids, magical creatures. Put some effort into it. Make them look magical. Why was Ariel, again, we're on nitpicks now. Why was Ariel using her hands to swim? As a fish, use your fin to swim. Use the arms, which would be her upper fins, her body fins, to direct her which way to go. And maybe it's just me, but I felt like Ariel was moving too slow in the water. Another problem I had, the statue. The statue is in the movie, but the statue doesn't look like Eric. It looks more like Michelangelo's David with clothes on. It was a very nondescript statue and nothing really for Ariel to be in love with. A willful change or just too lazy to make it look like Eric? And why the hell don't the eels talk? That's a problem. Again, it wasn't Ursula. When Ursula goes to convince Ariel to come and see her, it's actually Flotsam and Jetsam that go and they talk to her and they whisper in her ear. But in the live-action movie, it's a bubble of water with Ursula's face on it, and Flotsam and Jetsam are floating around it. It's like, why were these changes in? Make the eels talk. They were evil. They were creepy. They had the different color eyes. They set the mood. They set the stage for who Ursula was. So, again, but one thing I have to say, The worst part of the entire movie, the absolute unforgivable thing, is they took out the chef song, Les Poissons. Why was that song not in there? Why did you have to do this to us, Disney? You could have left that song in, but anyway, that's probably one of my favorite songs in the whole thing. But I sat and watched this with with both of my tiny clones, my two youngest clones, and about an hour and a half, less than an hour and a half through it, my child was pretty much checked out of the movie, had no interest in watching the rest. I actually forced her to watch it because I needed her opinion. She has no desire to ever watch this movie again. She's more interested in watching the animated version. Now, this movie is for her generation. It's to introduce the children to all these other things. She didn't find the singing all that good. Let's see. Shipwreck instead of the dolphins. Oh, she was comparing it to... Starts with the ship instead of the dolphins. Not that bad. I don't find that. Let's see. Aerial stealing stuff. That's a nitpick. Used her arms. I think she was listening to my complaints, so I have to be very careful with what I say among them, around them. She actually wasn't paying attention, didn't realize that Eric was Eric, but roughly, I guess the bottom line is she was checked out after an hour and a half. That's not good. These run times, 2 hours and 20 minutes, 2 hours and 16 minutes when it comes to movies for kids. Hollywood, this is too long of a run time for children. They're going to check out after about an hour and a half if you're lucky. How do I know this? They've watched, my little tiny clones have watched the Mario movie 4 times. It's an hour and a half, and they've watched it 4 times. And they want to actually, oh God, no, they watched it 5. 5 now. We've sat down and watched it. So there's no excuse. 2.5 hours almost with this movie, 2 hours and 15 minutes versus an hour and a half. Cut your run time down. You'll get more people, more interest. You'll get more show times. I've said it before. Her lack of interest in ever watching this movie again says something. But all in all, I guess the bottom line is I was expecting worse of this movie. And it wasn't, I won't say it was a good movie, but it wasn't a bad movie. I do not believe there was any sort of underlying message outside of the very end, which is just dumb. But one scene in a movie does not turn the entire thing into the message. Would I see this again? I have no interest in seeing this again. Now, as far as box office, I said this in another one of my videos because I didn't realize what's coming out next weekend. I don't see this movie hitting 700 million. 600 to 650, easy enough. The Chinese box office is not going to help this movie. They need the domestic, and I don't think they're going to get it. The runtime is not going to help this movie. And what's really going to hurt it, we'll have to wait and see next weekend. What's going to happen with this drop-off? If it's a 60 to 65% drop-off, this movie's dead. It's done. There will be no hope for it making back its budget if it's lucky. And Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse comes out next weekend. People are waiting for it. That's going to hurt this movie, but we'll have to wait and see what the week-to-week drop-off is. We'll have to wait and see what Mr. Miles Morales does for the Spider-Verse. And I'm looking forward to Spider-Verse. But anyway, that's all I've got. I don't think this was a bad movie. I also don't think this was a good movie. It's definitely not a great movie. It's going to be forgotten, just like everything else. People will remember the animated classics, but the live-action versions of these will be lost to the sands of time. What the fuck am I trying to say? Anyway, thank you for making it this far. Let me know what you think in the comments. Leave a like, leave a dislike. Are you going to see the movie? Did you see the movie? Whatever. See you on the next one.